Welcome back to our channel. One of the key questions I often get asked is how credit systems work in National Qualifications Frameworks, NQFs. So, I've decided to create this short video on this topic and share some insights on international systems. Before we start, if you're new to this channel or visit us often, please help me grow this channel by hitting the subscribe or like button. Your support is greatly appreciated. Feel free to leave a comment or suggest topics for future videos. Credit systems are an integral component of many NQFs. They quantify the volume of learning based on notional learning hours or other measures of student effort. These systems facilitate learning accumulation, transfer, and recognition across different contexts and institutions, supporting lifelong learning and educational mobility. Let's look at some examples from various countries. Firstly, what is a credit system? A credit system assigns numerical values, credits, to qualifications and courses based on the estimated workload required to achieve specific learning outcomes. The workload includes contact hours, lectures, tutorials, and self-study, assignments, and assessments. Credits help in measuring learning outcomes, providing a standard measure of learning achievements. Facilitating transfer, allowing learners to transfer credits between institutions and across borders. Supporting modular learning, enabling learners to build qualifications progressively by accumulating credits from different courses or modules. Key components of credit systems. 1. Credit points, numerical values assigned to courses or qualifications. They represent the amount of learning and workload involved. Learning outcomes, statements describing what learners are expected to know, understand, and be able to do after completing a course or qualification. Notional learning hours, the estimated time required for a learner to achieve the learning outcomes, including all forms of study and assessment. Credit accumulation, the process of collecting credits over time to achieve a qualification. Credit transfer, the recognition of credits earned at one institution or in one context by another institution or in a different context. How are credits created? Credits are created through a structured process that involves several key steps. Step 1. Defining learning outcomes. Educators and institutions first identify and define the specific learning outcomes a course or qualification aims to achieve. These outcomes describe the knowledge, skills, and competence learners are expected to acquire. Step 2. Estimating notional learning hours. The next step is to estimate the total time a learner will need to achieve these outcomes based on the defined learning outcomes. This estimation includes all forms of learning, such as classroom instruction, self-study, assignments, and assessments. The estimated time is referred to as notional learning hours. Step 3. Assigning credit points. Credit points are assigned to the course or qualification once the notional learning hours are determined. Different education systems use various conversions, but generally, a specific number of notional learning hours equates to a set number of credit points. For example, in the European Credit Transfer and Accumulation System, ECTS, 25 to 30 notional learning hours typically correspond to 1 ECTS credit. Step 4. Validation and quality assurance. The proposed credits and learning outcomes are reviewed and validated by relevant educational authorities or accrediting bodies. This process ensures that the credits accurately reflect the required learning and that the standards are maintained across institutions. Step 5. Implementation and monitoring. The credit system is implemented in the educational program after validation. Institutions monitor and review the application of credits to ensure they meet the desired learning outcomes and remain relevant to the needs of learners and the labor market. Examples of credit systems. European Credit Transfer and Accumulation System, ECTS. Structure. 1 ECTS credit corresponds to 25 to 30 hours of workload. A full-time academic year typically comprises 60 ECTS credits, equating to 1,500 and 1,800 study hours. Usage. Widely used in the European Higher Education Area, EHEA, to facilitate the transfer and recognition of academic qualifications and periods of study across Europe. Qualifications examples. Bachelor's degree requires 180 to 240 ECTS credits, reflecting 3 to 4 years of full-time study. Master's degree requires 60 to 120 ECTS credits, reflecting 1 to 2 years of full-time study. Doctoral degree. Generally, it does not have a fixed credit requirement but is based on original research outcomes. European Credit System for Vocational Education and Training, ECVET. Structure. ECVET uses a points system similar to the European Credit Transfer and Accumulation System, ECTS. One ECVET point typically corresponds to 10 hours of learning outcomes. Usage facilitates transferring, recognizing, and accumulating learning outcomes across European countries and institutions. For example, the certificate in carpentry has 60 ECVET points, representing approximately 600 hours of learning, including practical training and theoretical instruction. Australian Qualifications Framework, AQF. Structure. The AQF does not prescribe a specific credit point system but provides guidelines on the learning volume for each qualification level. Typically, 1 year of full-time study is approximately 1,200 hours. Usage. Used to ensure the comparability and transferability of qualifications across Australia. Qualifications examples. 1. Certificate 3. Typically requires completion of units totaling around 600 to 1,200 hours of study, often completed over 1 year of full-time study. 2. Diploma. Requires approximately 1 to 2 years of full-time study, equating to 1,200 to 2,400 hours. 3. Bachelor's degree. Typically requires 3 to 4 years of full-time study, equating to 3,600 to 4,800 hours. 4. Master's degree. Usually requires 1 to 2 years of full-time study, equating to 1,200 to 2,400 hours. 5. Doctoral degree. Generally requires 3 to 4 years of full-time study based on research rather than a fixed number of hours. Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework, SCQF. Structure. One SCQF credit point represents 10 hours of learning. Qualifications are assigned certain credits based on the total learning hours required. Usage facilitates lifelong learning and credit transfer across Scotland's different education and training providers. Qualifications examples. National 5, typically worth 24 SCQF credits, 240 learning hours. Higher National Certificate, HNC, worth 96 SCQF credits, 960 learning hours. 3. Bachelor's degree with honors, typically worth 480 SCQF credits, 4,800 learning hours. United States credit system. Structure. Typically, 1 credit hour corresponds to 1 hour of classroom instruction and 2 hours of independent study per week. A standard full-time semester usually involves 15 credit hours. Usage. Widely used across higher education institutions in the US to structure degree programs and facilitate transfer between institutions. Qualifications examples. Associate degree requires approximately 60 credit hours, typically completed over 2 years. Bachelor's degree requires approximately 120 credit hours, typically completed over 4 years. Master's degree generally requires 30 to 60 credit hours, depending on the program and institution. New Zealand Qualifications Framework, NZQF. Structure. 1 NZQF credit represents 10 notional hours of learning. The framework covers levels 1 to 10, with each qualification assigned a specific number of credits. Usage supports the recognition of prior learning and the transfer of credits within New Zealand's education system. Qualifications examples. 1. Certificate, Level 3, typically requires around 40 to 60 credits, equating to 400 to 600 hours of learning. 2. Diploma, Level 5, requires around 120 credits, equating to 1,200 hours of learning. 3. Bachelor's degree, Level 7, typically requires 360 credits, equating to 3,600 hours of learning, usually over 3 years. 4. Master's degree, Level 9, requires 120 to 240 credits, equating to 1,200 to 2,400 hours of learning, depending on the program. Doctoral degree, Level 10, focuses on original research outcomes rather than a fixed credit requirement. South African National Qualifications Framework, SANQF. Structure. Credits are based on notional learning hours, with 1 credit typically equating to 10 hours of learning. Qualifications are designed to have specific credit values. Usage helps accumulate and transfer credits within South Africa's education and training system. Qualifications examples. 1. Higher Certificate, NQF Level 5, typically requires around 120 credits, equating to 1,200 notional hours of learning. 2. Advanced Certificate, NQF Level 6, requires around 120 credits, equating to 1,200 notional hours of learning. 3. Bachelor's degree, NQF level 7, typically requires around 360 credits, equating to 3,600 notional hours of learning, usually over 3 years. 4. Honors degree, NQF level 8, requires around 120 credits, equating to 1,200 notional hours of learning. 5. Master's degree, NQF level 9, generally requires 180 credits, equating to 1,800 notional hours of learning. 6. Doctoral degree, NQF level 10, focuses on original research and does not have a fixed credit requirement, but it is usually understood as equivalent to around 3,600 hours of work over 3 years. Conclusion: credit systems are fundamental to the structure of NQFs, providing a standardized measure of learning and facilitating the accumulation, transfer, and recognition of qualifications. Countries adopt varying credit systems tailored to their educational contexts, but the core principles remain consistent, supporting educational mobility and lifelong learning. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on national qualifications frameworks as we continue to explore the exciting world of technical, vocational education and training. Don't forget to subscribe and check out our website. The link is in the description below. See you all soon. Thanks.